You know, being a Bionicle fan in the late 2000s was kind of rough. Growing up, I had a very limited amount of Bionicle parts for a long time, and that was mainly because there was some kind of recession and there wasn't a lot of money to spend on frivolous things like Lego. But luckily the recession is over and things like Bionicle and Lego have returned back to normal prices. Right? I think now more than ever it's the perfect time to consider making your own Matoran Mocs. At least that's what I did when I was a kid, because not having a lot of Bionicle parts meant I couldn't really build cool stuff like Toa or villains all the time. So what I would usually do is just take apart my sets and build smaller Mocs, because as a kid I thought, you know, quantity over quality, which is kind of dumb now, but I mean, I was a kid then, and I kind of have that same sentiment still. Which is why I collected like every single Bionicle set, but whatever. Matoran are great because they don't use a lot of parts, like I just said. And up until 2008, for the price of one Toa, you could buy 2 Matoran, and of course, this price difference is reflected in the part count. We've got a Matoran or sets that use their build every year except 2005. Tahunga, O3 Tauren, Metru Tauren, Karzani Spawn, Mari build, and the Av Matoran. There's a lot of different builds to choose from, so you don't necessarily have to make your own. But for this video, I'd rather talk about Matoran Mocs instead of revamps. I brought 3 of my own Matoran Mocs to drive home the points I'll make throughout the video. But I have a special build that I'll show off at the end, so stick around for that. The first Moc I have is my Oni NG Moc that I use for my Oni Plays animations. He uses a Matoran design I made as a child. He's a bit riddled with illegal building techniques, however I was able to reinforce him with other Technic parts, so he's good for animation. Next I have a random Matoran build that I made for fun. This tall Matoran uses red and dark bluish gray pieces because I feel that they're a great color scheme and was one of the reasons why I made this Moc in the first place. And here we have a Matoran Moc of one of my friends who I've known since I was 11. He's also a Bionicle fan and we even bought sets together. The Matoran build here is one I've used and reused for friends in my Discord community. Speaking of Discord, I'll be taking a look at some Matoran Mocs that members posted in the server, so if you want to see your own Moc show up in possible future videos, consider joining. Link in the description. Now, let's start with the legs of these Matoran. They're usually the first part when I build Mocs or Mavs anyways. For Chris, I used a pretty simple and pretty iconic build, which is just attaching a foot to a too long axle to a Bionicle hand. This actually exists in one Bionicle set, that being the Toa Kaida combiner of Gali, Kapaka, and who is it? Yeah, Leiwa. Overall, it's pretty simple, and you theoretically could add Greeble with the available axles on each side, and you could attach studs on the slits of the old style Matoran hands. However, a lot of stress goes into the foot socket with the axle going in, so keep that in mind. Also, there's a very minimum amount of articulation, just connecting the foot directly. Perhaps for added articulation in the ankles, you can add a small CCBS joint. For the random tall Matoran build, I used a Technic cam piece to create a lower leg. The added axle connection points allow you to add axles at different spots, only putting minimum to no stress on the part. The whole assembly is then covered by a medium-sized Hero Factory shell, then it's connected to a small CCBS limb. I probably could make something cleaner as the axles are sticking up from the back, but I don't really care right now because you don't really see the Moc from the back anyways. And finally we have the Discord Matoran, who just uses a small CCBS limb for the thigh and a slightly longer one for the lower leg. I covered the axle here with a tire because I don't really like the bare look and the thinness of the CCBS joints. This is probably the easiest one to replicate and the cleanest looking build out of the 3 in my opinion. Alright, let's check out some of the legs on the Matoran posted on the Discord server. Here we have Get to the Point Matoran. It's a version of his self-mocked bed as a Matoran. I just want to say being able to add the knee articulation is great because what he did here was he used the Bionicle hand and he connected a flex tube and this Technic connector piece, and it's very versatile. It works great for a knee here. Using the black cheese slope and the 1x1 tile also just to cover up some of the bits is good too, and I really like the shape. And finally, I just want to say using the Glatorian shin armor is great, like especially for such a small build. I really wish it came in more colors personally. And next we have Drago Gambit 2021's Matoran, and I just gotta say, there is a lot going on here. I mean, first of all, the first thing that draws my attention when I look at the legs is the fact that he used Slicer or Toamata hands for feet. Now, I don't know how secure those are or how stable they are, but I mean, it works here. If you just want the photo, you got it. Like, And on top of that, he gave it articulated toes. I mean, bionicle toes? Like, I never, what a concept. Yeah, like, that's really cool. It reminds me of, like, Tahunga feet, honestly. Yeah, it's, like I said, it's not the cleanest look, but I mean, hey, you could just say like he came out of like the realm of Karzani, you know? So yeah, great stuff, man. Next, let's talk about arms. As you can clearly see, all these mocks have very simple arms. Two have the exact same build, and that's what's great about CCBS builds, honestly. You get proportionate builds to the body, and also articulation for smaller mocks in their knees and elbows. For the Oni Sephiroth mock, I used a simple Borak limb. It's great for animating because of the limited articulation. It also glides easily, and I don't have to worry about the stiffness of the CCBS limbs. Try using Matoran limbs, Mata joints, or if you're bougie enough to Hunga arms in your Matoran Mocs. But if you're really brave, try making your own custom arms. I made custom arms for my Matoran Self Mock also. I actually also made a video talking about Self Mocks, so consider watching it if you want to see a more detailed look at the build. So this is Torin, he was created by Electro 10 Mock. Actually, this is a Mauve, created by another user called Top Hat Studios, and yeah, this is just a miniature version of that character. Overall, the hands are really simple, or should I say the arms are very simple. The hands actually are probably inspired by Callan LOF because they use a T-bar to connect fingers to it. A pretty simple design. I also like the dark and light theme going on here, but I don't even know if that's what it's about because I don't know anything about the lore of the character. And here we have Get to the Points Matoran. There's just a lot going on here. First of all, we already know that the upper arm is just a copy of the knee design from the lower leg, and there's nothing wrong with using the same limbs. But the hands are the really interesting part. They're not actually Bionicle hands. They're like this Technic connector part, and it's jammed into a ball joint to act as a hand. And then when you have the system parts connected to it, well, it just looks like fingers, and I think it looks really nice. It's a very interesting design choice, and I just want to say that if you do this, like if you like plan on doing something like that, just be wary. Your parts are probably going to break eventually, and you will have to replace them. And finally for this video, let's focus on torso. It's probably the most important part of the build, as you can put the most amount of customization here. The Chris Mock here is a fairly simple build with an Anika lower torso and a Metru thigh for a shoulder, all connected to a Metru torso armor with blue axle pins. The reason I used the Metru torso armor was because of the advent of the Glatorian, making the armor piece very common. Also, if you haven't noticed, the blue pins don't go all the way in. This modified version keeps everything more secure than the original build, as the blue pins would sometimes slip out of the Metru thigh. Next we have the Discord Matoran build, which has the bonus of waist articulation. I added Greeble like the slicer feet and pinned bushing parts to beef him up a bit further. Overall he's a good build, but the waist articulation actually ruins the build for me slightly look-wise. The angle and the color palette of the Hordika neck just blow. Personally, if there's one thing I would do to fix this, would be just to make a custom thing that uses a Technic ball joint, but obviously this is a lot more secure and way more resourceful on parts. And because I replicated this build multiple times, I feel like it's just best to keep it this way for simplicity reasons. And finally, we have the Table Scrap Tom Matoran. While sorting my collection, I realized I didn't have a lot of Metru Matoran arms, so I found the cheapest store on Bricklink selling them in bulk and bought 100 of them. This was a while back, and I didn't really use a lot of them, because I didn't find a good use for them. However, they ended up looking nice here. Not only do they work for connection points for the shoulders, but they connect the upper and lower torso as well. Everything is then held together by axles and this thin Technic piece just like Kina. Then for the chest I cover it up with slope system pieces and tiles as well. And I even put a heart light just like the Miramax movies. And to cap things off, I put this gear on the back to cover things up further, making him look more mechanical, just like the Toa Mata and the Toa Nuva. And we're looking at him again. This is, of course, Get to the Points Matoran Mock. And yeah, I mean, like, come on, this is so cool. Like, look at that torso, man. He uses mostly system pieces for detail. Like, look at that, like, heart light, bro. Like, doesn't it remind you of, like, Callan or something? It's a really big heart light, and I imagine, like, it just shoot, like, energy blasts. But yeah, I really love those hose pieces on like the shoulders, like the hard plastic ones. Like those are really cool. to like add details, and like using those like bar pieces with the stud at the end of it and those minifigure hands for like pistons, like all like really cool, like awesome, man. Really big fan of this, honestly. Yeah, point. This, like, I think you knocked it out of the ballpark with this one. Don't worry, I didn't forget about the special Matoran I wanted to show you all. This Matoran here is a mock I made for a friend named Teddy Seal, who doesn't have a lot of Bionicle parts himself. This self-mock was made around the time I released the My Build LEGO knockoff video. If you don't remember or know, it's a mech frame build system that uses mixel joints and clip pieces to connect to one another. Then you can stack on system parts to add details. I guess what I'm trying to say is, Bionicle MOCs don't have to be just CCBS or Technic oriented, or bootleg, or even just system, but combining all four can help you create something unique for yourself. It's been over 10 years since Bionicle ended, and 10 years since Hero Factory as well. Even Generation 2 has taken on 7 years, and with the amount of new Technic system and bootleg LEGO parts out there, why not try creating something unique and original for yourself? And that's all I got for you today. Oh my goodness, that is, wow, why did I write that? And that's all I got for you for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.